Lawn sprinklers clicked at 5 a.m., the suburb's way of applauding itself for surviving another night. I lay awake, counting the seconds between bursts, the rhythm so precise it could have been set to a metronome. Maple Crescent liked to keep time. It liked perfect edges, matching mailboxes, and morning joggers who waved like synchronized swimmers. I wasn't in the mood to wave. I was busy cataloging facts, dates, scents, and the small sounds that didn't belong to me. The soft chime of Matthew's phone on the dresser, the faint trace of citrus perfume that clung to his blazer when he came home late. Before we dive deeper into the story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. He said it was from a Coworker's candle store promotion. Of course, he said it with that charming grin people in sales learn at birth. Don't be jealous, he added, half laughing, kissing the air near my cheek. She's just fun to talk to. You're too serious sometimes. That too serious line should have been my first warning, but I'd heard it before, from supervisors who forgot to say please, from patients' parents who didn't like firm answers. It's what people say when you've stopped entertaining them. I swung my legs off the bed, the floor cool under my feet. Coffee first, confrontation never. The nurse's creed. I brewed it strong, the way we make it during night shifts, poured it into a travel mug, and sat by the kitchen window. Across the street, Mrs. Caldwell walked her golden retriever, the one that barked at mail carriers but adored Matthew. Everyone adored Matthew. By 6 he stumbled in, still smelling like hotel lobby cologne. "You're up early," he said, loosening his tie. "I'm always up early," I replied. "Some of us have morning rounds." He smiled, kissed the top of my head, like I was a child, and went straight to the shower. The water pressure hissed, and I wondered if he thought that sound could wash away his stories. At work, I was Nurse Grant again, organized, brisk, the one who never forgot a chart. Children are honest. They don't fake emotions to protect your ego. When a toddler glares at you, you've earned it. By noon, I'd bandaged 3 knees and listened to 2 parents explain how their son's tantrums weren't really his fault. Real life rarely is, according to people like that. My supervisor, Priya, leaned against the counter during lunch break. "You look like someone who slept with her eyes open." "Maybe I did," she smiled. "Matthew keeping you up?" I stirred my coffee. "He keeps himself up. I just hear the soundtrack." She studied me the way nurses study monitors, quietly, waiting for an irregularity. "You'll tell me if it becomes something, right?" "It's already something," I said, and she didn't push. The days blurred into predictable patterns, my shifts, his excuses, the scent of citrus that refused to fade, until the wedding. It was one of those perfectly staged suburban events, fairy lights, mason jars, and a live band pretending to enjoy Sweet Caroline for the 1,000th time. The bride was my old friend Claire, the groom someone in finance, and Matthew was thrilled to attend. He polished his shoes the night before like it was an award ceremony. "You'll love my co-workers," he told me as we drove there. "They're a riot." I smiled, not because I believed him, but because silence would have been heavier. At the reception, Matthew became a different creature. He moved through the crowd like a spotlight followed him, telling stories louder than necessary, clinking glasses he hadn't paid for. I stayed near the table, chatting with Claire's aunt, pretending the roasted chicken was fascinating. Then came the coworker, Chloe. She was young, bright-eyed, dressed like every influencer who insists effortlessness takes no effort. She laughed at everything Matthew said, touching his arm with the confidence of someone who believed she'd earned the right. I watched them from across the dance floor. I counted how many songs he danced through without looking for me. 3. By the 4th, someone shouted, "Matt, you married, right?" He grinned, a full, showy grin. "Not really. She's too boring to count." Laughter rippled through the room. Chloe giggled into her drink. I felt a strange quietness inside, not like breaking, more like reorganizing. I smiled faintly, finished my champagne, and excused myself. Outside, the air was cool. The valet looked surprised to see me so soon. "Leaving early, ma'am?" "Yes," I said, "but not before you tell me which car is ours." It took longer than it should have. 2 SUVs blocked the exit, drivers arguing about tip amounts. I eased out, the headlights bouncing over the gravel drive, my heart steady. At the gate, I checked the mirror. Matthew didn't appear. He never even noticed. Back home, the house looked smug, neat lawn, motion lights glowing like tiny sentinels. I brewed fresh coffee, sat at the kitchen island, and opened the laptop. A nurse's mind loves structure, so I made lists. 1. Financial. I transferred half of our joint savings to my personal account, the half I'd earned through double shifts and cancelled vacations. 2. Access. I cancelled the cards with my name, knowing he'd discover it at a bar when the waiter said declined. 3. Evidence. Tom Alvarez, our mutual friend and the wedding photographer, had already posted teasers online. I saved the one where Matthew's hand rested too comfortably on Chloe's hip. 4. Strategy. I drafted an email to his company's HR department, concise, polite, factual. Subject: concern regarding potential conflict of interest. Attachments included the photo and date. Nothing dramatic, just enough to invite questions. When I finished, I sat back. The sprinkler clicked on again outside, right on schedule. The next morning, Matthew's side of the bed was empty when I woke. He'd stayed out again. I brewed coffee, habit, not hospitality, and waited. At 7:45, he came in, wearing yesterday's shirt, pretending confidence. "Traffic was crazy," he said. "In this suburb, at dawn." He ignored that, moving straight to his phone. It buzzed with message after message. His face changed, barely, but I saw it. "What happened?" I asked, casual as a nurse checking vitals. He hesitated. "Work drama, nothing big." I nodded. "Of course." 10 minutes later, he rushed out, leaving his mug half full. I watched from the window as he pulled out of the driveway, tires whispering against the wet asphalt. Then my phone pinged, a notification from the airline. "Booking confirmed. Rome, one way." I smiled, not because I was leaving, but because it looked like I was. Decoys are underrated. At the hospital, I moved through rounds smoothly, letting my mind replay the wedding scene like a training video. Every detail mattered, the exact moment the laughter spread, the tone of his voice when he said, "boring." When you've worked in pediatrics, you learn how humiliation scars. Kids show it openly, adults hide it behind sarcasm. Priya caught me in the break room again. "So, are we still pretending everything's fine?" I shrugged. Pretending works better than crying. "True. Pretending keeps mascara in place." We laughed softly. The sound felt like oxygen after a long climb. By late afternoon, I received a reply from HR. "We'd like to schedule a meeting to discuss your concern." They didn't say your husband, just the employee involved. That small omission tasted better than dessert. At home, the sun dipped low, throwing long stripes of gold across the living room. The house smelled like lemon cleaner and distance. I sat at the kitchen counter, reviewing my checklist again, step by step, like preparing for a surgical procedure. 1. Secure finances. Done. 2. Document timeline. In progress. 3. Maintain composure. Always. The door opened. Matthew stepped in, slower this time. "You transferred money," he said. I checked. "I did, my half." He stared at me, confused, maybe even impressed. "Why would you do that?" "So you won't have to worry about managing both accounts. Consider it my contribution to your simplicity." He rubbed his temples. "You're overreacting. People joke at weddings." "Some jokes tell the truth," I said. "They just wrap it in laughter." He groaned, pacing. You sent something to HR, didn't you? Don't lie. I didn't answer. I just looked at him until he realized silence can be sharper than words. Isabel, this is going to make things messy. I smiled slightly. Messy isn't always bad. It just means someone finally moved the furniture. He left the room, muttering something about fixing it. I didn't follow. When the night settled, I packed a small bag, passport, wallet, charger, notebook. I wasn't leaving yet, but preparation calms me. I placed it by the front door, next to his shoes. Symbolism never hurts. I couldn't sleep, so I sat on the porch with a blanket and watched the streetlights hum. A raccoon rummaged through a neighbor's trash bin, bold as a gossip. Across the street, Mrs. Caldwell's golden retriever barked once, then went quiet again. The world looked unchanged, but it wasn't. I wasn't. At 3 a.m., Matthew's phone buzzed on the counter. I didn't check. It wasn't necessary. When you already know the diagnosis, there's no need for more tests. Morning arrived pink and quiet. The sprinklers clicked on cue. I poured coffee, opened the blinds, and waited for the inevitable. It came right after 7. His phone lit up again, this time louder. 3 messages, all from unknown numbers. I read the previews. We need to talk, Matthew. Please confirm attendance at HR review. Ethics inquiry scheduled Monday. He stumbled out of the bedroom in his robe, rubbing his eyes. Why is everyone messaging me? Maybe they want your charm, I said. He looked at me, confused, almost panicked. What did you do? I took a sip of coffee. I told the truth. He grabbed his phone, scrolling. His expression twisted, half disbelief, half admiration, the kind people give an opponent who just outplayed them. I can fix this, he muttered. Of course you can, I said. You always think you can. He stormed out, phone glued to his ear, muttering about misunderstandings and misinterpretations. The front door closed with a soft thud. I sat there, listening to the echo fade. Then I walked to the window and watched his car disappear around the corner. My reflection in the glass looked calm, almost detached. The nurse in me appreciated the efficiency of the plan. Still, a part of me, a smaller, quieter part, wanted to feel something bigger: anger, grief, satisfaction. Instead, I just felt awake. At the hospital that afternoon, the children were restless. One little boy, Evan, refused to take his antibiotics. I crouched beside his bed and said, "You know how superheroes have to take power-ups?" He nodded, suspicious. "Well, this is yours. It's the only one that works without a cape." He laughed, swallowed the medicine, then said, "You sound like my mom when she's pretending not to be sad." I smiled, pretending not to be caught. "Then your mom must be very strong." By the end of the shift, Priya glanced at me again. "Whatever storm you're walking into, you're handling it better than most." "Handling things is my favorite hobby," I said. That night, I drove home slower than usual. The houses glowed softly, identical yet distinct in their small details. Flag positions, porch chairs, garden ornaments. I parked in the driveway, turned off the engine, and left the radio playing just loud enough to hear a saxophone solo fade out. The house was dark, except for the kitchen light. Matthew wasn't home yet. I sat in the car a few minutes longer, fingers resting on the steering wheel. The dashcam light blinked steadily, recording nothing but stillness. Eventually, I stepped out, heels clicking softly against the concrete. I didn't go inside right away. Instead, I stood by the mailbox and looked at our street, the picture-perfect cul-de-sac everyone envied. Maple Crescent, where secrets compost quietly beneath manicured lawns. Somewhere down the block, a sprinkler sputtered out of sync. It made me smile. Even perfection loses rhythm eventually. When I finally entered the house, I opened my laptop and refreshed my email. A new message waited from HR. "Please confirm attendance at Monday's meeting." Another from the airline. "We look forward to welcoming you aboard." I closed both tabs. In the quiet, I could almost hear Matthew's voice from the wedding again. Not really, she's too boring to count. I whispered back into the empty room. You should have counted better. Outside, the sprinklers clicked once more, their rhythm crisp and certain. I finished my coffee, watched the driveway glisten, and started my car. I didn't drive far, just to the edge of the neighborhood. From there, I could see our windows glowing faintly in the distance. I let the engine idle, the hum steady beneath my hands. I prefer tidy, I said aloud, as if reminding myself of the rules. Then I shifted into gear and rolled forward, leaving the perfect lawns behind for now, though not for long. The night air smelled of wet grass and something else. Change, maybe. Whatever it was, it felt organized. Tomorrow he would wake up alone, and for the first time in a long while, I would finally wake up too. The morning sun in Maple Crescent has a personality. Showy, self-satisfied, always arriving too early, like a guest who ignores the invitation time. By 7:30, it had already warmed the dew off the lawns and turned the cul-de-sac into a postcard. I stood at the window with my coffee, watching the neighborhood perform its daily routine. Same cars, same leashes, same smiles. The kind of quiet that hums instead of rests. I hadn't seen Matthew since he stormed out the day before. The house, stripped of his constant noise, felt almost tranquil. A forgotten peace. No TV echoing sports analysis, no phone buzzing with jokes from coworkers. Just the ticking of the kitchen clock, the one I bought because it promised whisper sweep hands. I liked how it didn't click. Unlike most people here, it knew how to stay silent. When I stepped outside, the air smelled faintly of fertilizer and gossip, two things that made this neighborhood thrive. Aunt Beverly's hydrangeas, 3 doors down, were already blooming, as if showing off for the HOA cameras. She was Matthew's aunt, technically, but she treated the entire street like her personal reality show. Her voice drifted from her porch before I even reached the mailbox. Isabel, you missed the HOA mixer last night. We were all wondering about you and Matthew. I offered a polite smile. Busy week at the hospital. Well, you know how people talk, she said, in a tone that ensured people would talk. Someone mentioned seeing Matthew's car outside that new wine bar on 5th. Without you, of course. I sipped my coffee and gave her my best professional smile, the one reserved for parents who demand antibiotics for a common cold. You might want to tell your source to invest in better lighting. People make mistakes. Her lips twitched. Oh, I never mistake anything, dear. I leaned closer. Except decency, but that's forgivable. Everyone has blind spots. The look on her face could have curdled fresh cream. I almost thanked her for brightening my morning. At work, the day unfolded with familiar chaos. Short-staffed, high volume, endless alarms. But I liked the rhythm. Children were easier to interpret than adults. Their pain was direct, not layered under charm or excuses. During my break, Priya joined me by the vending machine. So, rumor says your husband's company had a small scandal brewing. Rumor travels faster than lab results, I said. But yes, I've heard. She raised an eyebrow. You're calm. I'm consistent, I corrected. Calm implies I was supposed to panic. Priya tilted her head. If I ever end up in trouble, remind me to hire you as my crisis manager. I don't manage crises. I schedule them. She laughed. Terrifying. When my shift ended, I didn't drive home immediately. Instead, I took the long route through the older part of town, the one without matching houses and mandatory mailboxes. The streets curved freely, unplanned, like they trusted people to find their own way. I parked by a small park and sat there, notebook open, listing what I knew. 1. HR had received the photos. Matthew's office grapevine must be vibrating by now. 2. Aunt Beverly had started her neighborhood concerns. 3. Chloe's social media remained public. I had checked, purely for research. She had posted a photo that morning. the bracelet I once gave Matthew, now wrapped around her wrist. Caption: Monday motivation. I stared at the picture for a long moment. The silver charm caught the sunlight like it was laughing. I took a screenshot, not for revenge this time, but for record-keeping. Facts first, emotion later. By evening, Maple Crescent had switched to its twilight performance. Porch lights glowing, dogs barking at invisible threats, and Beverly making her rounds with a glass of white wine that seemed surgically attached to her hand. I was bringing groceries from the car when she appeared again, her sandals clicking like punctuation. "Darling, have you talked to Matthew? People are starting to notice he's been absent." "Absence builds character," I said, shifting the grocery bag. She lowered her voice. "If something's wrong, you should fix it privately. This neighborhood thrives on harmony." "Harmony's overrated," I said. "Besides, privacy depends on who you ask." Before she could reply, a familiar buzzing sound cut through the air. Ethan Cole, the self-appointed HOA enforcer, was flying his drone again. It hovered near the lampposts, red light blinking like a curious eye. "Evening, Mrs. Grant," he called from across the street, controlling the drone with exaggerated precision. "Testing new flight software. Thing can zoom 2 blocks now." "Impressive," I said. "Does it record too?" "Sure does. You want a copy of tonight's flight? You can see how perfect your lawn edges are." I smiled. "I'd love that. Perfection deserves proof." He promised to send it later. I knew exactly why I wanted it. Not to spy, just to confirm patterns. People think evidence is about what's visible. Often, it's about what repeats. That night, while uploading charts for work, my inbox pinged. Subject: Drone highlights, Maple Crescent. Ethan's file arrived with an excited note. "Caught some cool shots of your driveway." I opened the footage. The drone glided over rooftops, smooth and steady, before dipping near the main road. There, frame 19, Matthew's car. Parked 2 streets over, at 11:58 p.m., outside the apartment complex where Chloe supposedly lived. License plate clear, timestamp visible. I didn't feel shock, just a neat, almost mathematical sense of confirmation. Truth rarely surprises. It just organizes what you already suspected. The next morning, Beverly cornered me again while I was trimming the hedges. "You look tired," she said. "People might misunderstand." "I trust people to misunderstand everything," I said. She blinked. "Well, I just think you should talk to Matthew before this gets complicated." "Complication is inevitable," I replied, brushing leaves off my gloves. "But thank you for your professional concern." Inside, I watched the drone clip again, frame by frame. I noted the time, date, and angle, then saved it twice. Once on the laptop, once on an external drive labeled innocently as recipes. Nurses are experts in labeling things for safety. That afternoon, I heard Matthew's car pull into the driveway. The sound startled me, though I'd expected it. He entered with that same overconfident smile, but there was tension underneath, like a sales pitch going stale. "We need to talk," he said, dropping his keys onto the counter. "I'm listening." He sighed. "HR called. Someone sent them pictures of me at the wedding. You wouldn't know anything about that, would you?" "I know Tom posts everything online. Maybe they saw it too." "Isabel, this isn't funny." "Who's laughing?" He paced, rubbing his jaw. "They're saying it violates company policy. Workplace conduct, optics, all that nonsense. Chloe might get dragged into this." "Optics matter in sales," I said lightly. "You taught me that." He slammed his palm lightly on the counter. "You've always had a sharp tongue. Maybe that's why." He stopped himself. I folded my arms. "Go on. Maybe that's why what?" He shook his head. "Forget it. Look, we can fix this. We'll host a neighborhood brunch, show everyone we're fine. Beverly already offered to help." "I'd rather host a fire drill." He scowled. "You can't keep making everything a performance." "Can't I?" I asked quietly. You seem to enjoy them. He stared at me, searching for the version of me who used to smooth things over. She was gone, replaced by someone who took notes. I'll be staying at Derek's for a few nights, he said finally, until this cools down. I nodded. That seems wise. Take your citrus candle too. His mouth tightened. You're enjoying this? Not yet, I said, but maybe I will. When he left, the silence returned, heavy but satisfying. I sat at the dining table, watching the evening settle over the street. Porch lights blinked on one by one, obedient as soldiers. An hour later, my phone buzzed. A new message, from HR again. Follow-up scheduled for Wednesday. Please confirm availability. Perfect. I leaned back, thinking of Matthew's face when he saw that message. The man who once told everyone he was the fun one was about to learn how quiet consequences can be. The next day, Beverly organized her routine community walk. It wasn't about fitness, it was reconnaissance. I joined purely for observation. Claire, my old friend and now local gossip partner, was there too. So, I heard Matthew's company is doing some ethics review, Claire said between steps. That true? Apparently, I said. You know how officers love drama. Claire grinned. Well, Chloe hasn't been in the office since Monday. Maybe she's on vacation, or hiding. People need breaks, I said. Some of us longer than others. By evening, the neighborhood Facebook group lit up. Someone, probably Ethan, had posted drone stills of Maple Crescent night beauty, featuring glowing driveways and parked cars. One image caught my eye immediately. Matthew's car again, timestamp visible, parked in the same suspicious spot. Comments rolled in. Who's that night owl? Looks like someone's secret visits. I didn't reply. Gossip had its own metabolism. It didn't need feeding. That night, while sorting laundry, I found one of Matthew's shirts with lipstick, faint enough to require good lighting to notice. Not red, coral, the same shade Chloe wore at the wedding. I folded it neatly and placed it back in his drawer. Some discoveries work best when they wait their turn. Later, I received a text from an unknown number. Hey, just checking if Matthew's okay. He seemed off today. The contact photo showed Chloe smiling in a conference selfie. She must have dialed the wrong number, or the right one. I replied, He's fine, and so am I. No response came. The next morning, Priya found me in the supply closet restocking gloves. Your eyes are sharper than usual, she said. Good lighting, I replied. You planning something? Just balance, I said. Some people chase it through yoga. I prefer spreadsheets. She chuckled, shaking her head. You scare me sometimes. I scare easily too, I said, just not by the same things. When I left the hospital that night, the sky was streaked with violet and grey. Maple Crescent glowed in the distance, a picture of suburban calm. I parked in the driveway, turned off the engine, and sat for a moment, feeling the quiet settle like dust. I opened my phone and scrolled through the drone footage one last time, freezing on the frame where Matthew's car sat beneath a street lamp. Proof, but not purpose yet. Patience mattered. Revenge without rhythm just looks messy, and I had no intention of making a mess. Inside, the answering machine blinked. A single message. Beverly's voice floated out. Darling, there's talk that Chloe might move into the neighborhood. Isn't that funny? I smiled. Not funny, predictable. And predictable was a gift. I poured myself a glass of wine, stood at the window, and watched the sprinklers start again. The rhythm was off by one beat tonight. Someone had reset the timer, probably Ethan. It didn't matter. The lawns would still shine in the morning, pretending nothing had changed. But I had, and the rhythm of Maple Crescent was about to miss more than one beat. By Wednesday, the neighborhood looked normal again, which, in Maple Crescent terms, meant beautifully artificial. The garbage cans stood at identical angles, lawns cut to uniform precision, and Aunt Beverly's flag fluttered in a self-satisfied breeze. Normality here was a currency. People traded it like stocks. I wore my calmest face as I drove to work, though my mind was busy rehearsing. HR had called Matthew for his discussion. He'd told me the night before, in a strained attempt to sound confident. "They'll just ask a few questions," he said, his tone half bravado, half panic. "They'll do more than that," I'd answered. "They'll take notes. They love documentation." He glared, then muttered, "You're impossible." I almost smiled. Efficient is the word you're looking for. Now, sitting in morning traffic, I let my thoughts drift through all the ways this could unfold. I didn't want chaos. I wanted control. The two often get confused, but they're opposites. Chaos is loud. Control is almost silent. At the hospital, Priya cornered me in the staff lounge. "You're glowing," she said, narrowing her eyes. "Did you finally sleep?" "Something like that," I replied. "You're not the type to gloat, but there's a quiet satisfaction in that look." I shrugged. "Let's just say the house feels lighter." She smiled knowingly. "Sometimes, peace weighs less than forgiveness." I didn't respond. Forgiveness was a luxury for people who hadn't been humiliated in front of 200 wedding guests. After my shift, I parked outside the rooftop bar Matthew liked, one of those sleek spots that pretends to be casual but requires a reservation. The kind of place where people pretend to unwind while checking if anyone's watching. I didn't plan to go in yet. I just needed to see the stage before stepping onto it. The bar gleamed above the city, a glowing aquarium of ambition. Through the glass, I spotted Matthew, already surrounded by coworkers. Chloe stood beside him, hair perfect, eyes sparkling, hand on his sleeve. They looked rehearsed. I sat in the car, adjusted the rearview mirror, and thought of my mother's advice from years ago. People rarely lie well, they just rely on others not to notice. I noticed everything. By the time I entered the elevator, I had rehearsed every word I'd say, calm, concise, unshakable. The doors opened to soft music and louder laughter. Matthew saw me first. The colour drained slightly from his face, but his smile stayed glued. "Izzy, what are you doing here?" "Celebrating," I said. "I heard HR cleared you for now." The table quieted. Someone coughed. Chloe looked uncertain. "You must be so relieved," she offered, too brightly. "I am," I said, sliding into an empty seat. Relieved that truth has a way of rearranging itself. Matthew's jaw tightened. "We're in the middle of something, Isabel." "I can see that." The tension pulsed like static. A few of his colleagues excused themselves. Chloe tried to salvage the atmosphere by raising her glass. "To honesty and transparency," she said weakly. I smiled. "Cheers to that." We clinked glasses. Hers trembled slightly. When the evening wound down, I followed Matthew to the parking garage. The air smelled like rain and exhaust, the city's version of honesty. He turned sharply. "What are you doing?" "Just making sure you drive home safely." "I'm fine." "You usually are, until you're not." He groaned, rubbing his temples. "You can't keep shadowing me. This isn't healthy." "You think I'm the one who's unwell?" I asked, my voice even. "You humiliated me in front of everyone we know, and now you want me to forget because it's inconvenient for you." He exhaled, looking smaller than usual. "I made a mistake, all right? I said something stupid. I was drunk." "You weren't drunk," I said. "You were delighted." For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he said, "You've changed." "I had to," I replied. "You already did." He left without another word, the sound of his footsteps echoing down the ramp. I waited until his taillights disappeared, before turning to Chloe's convertible parked a few spaces away. The car was spotless, shimmering under the fluorescent lights. I reached into my bag, pulled out a small bottle of fish oil capsules, cheap, harmless, and potent once opened. With a calm hand, I unscrewed the lid, poured the contents through the vent near the windshield, and replaced the cap. It wasn't destruction, just chemistry. Then I noticed a faint scratch on the passenger door, probably from some careless valet. I traced it with my key, extending it slightly, subtle enough to pass as old. When I stepped back, it looked perfect. Authentic flaws always do. Driving home, I felt no thrill, no regret, just precision, the same feeling I get when a complex medical chart finally balances. The next morning, Maple Crescent woke to gossip. Chloe's social post appeared before breakfast. Someone vandalized my car. Unbelievable. The video showed her pointing at the scratch, her tone half outrage, half performance. Comments flooded in, some sympathetic, most curious. Aunt Beverly replied within minutes. "So sorry, dear. Some people can't control their emotions." Then, predictably, she tagged me. I sipped my coffee and smiled. Beverly never could resist a spotlight. Later, at the hospital, Priya handed me a file. "Your break got extended," she said. "You might need the extra time to read this." Inside was an HR memo addressed to all staff. Reminder, professional relationships must remain within ethical boundaries. No names, but the subtext glowed neon. "I didn't write this," I said. "I know," she replied, "but I'd wager you inspired it." That night, I received a message from a junior employee at Matthew's firm, someone I'd met once at a charity event. "You didn't hear it from me," it read, "but he expensed a weekend at Lakeside Suites for team bonding. Just thought you'd want to know." The words hummed on my screen. Lakeside Suites, the same retreat Matthew and I had planned for our anniversary before he cancelled, claiming work emergencies. Apparently, he'd gone after all. Just not with me. I looked at the clock. 11:30. Too late for confrontation. Too early for restraint. I opened my notebook instead and drew a small box next to confirm affair location. Next to it, I wrote, Friday. At 2 a.m., I couldn't sleep. I sat at the kitchen counter, tracing the edge of my coffee mug. The house was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the faint wind brushing against the windows. I thought about Chloe's car, the way the smell would linger for days, refusing to vanish no matter how much air freshener she used. It wasn't vengeance. It was a lesson in permanence. Some stains are invisible but lasting. I opened my laptop and checked the airline reservation again. The one-way flight to Italy. Still booked, still perfectly timed. Let Matthew find it one day when he's searching for reasons to pity himself. He'd think it was my escape. He'd be wrong. The next morning my phone rang. Priya again. "You're coming in today, right?" "Yes." "Good. You look too composed lately. It's unsettling." "Would you rather I fall apart?" "Depends on the mess," she said. "Yours might at least be tidy." On my way out, I noticed Ethan adjusting his drone again. He waved. "Got great shots last night. The new lens picks up reflections like glass." "Careful where you aim it," I said, smiling. "Some reflections bite back." He blinked, unsure whether I was joking. I wasn't. At work, between rounds, I caught myself drifting, thinking about the road to Lakeside Suites, the curve of the asphalt beside the water, the quiet angles where confrontation could happen without witnesses. I wasn't planning anything reckless, just exact. Revenge doesn't require rage. It only requires timing. When I returned home that evening, Beverly was waiting by my mailbox, her expression eager. "Oh, Isabel, have you seen the video? Poor Chloe, vandalized like that. You must be furious. People will assume it's you." I leaned on the fence. "Why would they assume that?" Her smile faltered. "Well, she is, connected to Matthew." "Then perhaps they'll assume it's him. He does have a talent for leaving marks." Beverly's jaw tightened. "You're starting to sound unkind." "Kindness is overrated," I said, "but efficiency never is." She huffed and marched off, muttering something about standards. I stood there a moment longer, breathing in the evening air. Somewhere down the block, sprinklers sputtered out of sync again. I liked that sound, the imperfection sneaking through the performance. Inside, I updated my list. Next step, Lakeside. Observe, record, conclude. I glanced at the framed wedding photo on the mantel. Matthew smiling, eyes bright, arm around my shoulder. I lifted the frame, turned it face down, and left it that way. The picture wasn't a memory anymore. It was evidence. I shut off the lights, the hum of the house settling into quiet obedience. For the first time in months, I felt rested. Not peaceful, not healed, just awake. The storm would break soon, I could feel it. But I wasn't afraid of storms anymore. I'd learned to time the sprinklers. Friday morning arrived like a held breath. The sky was pale and still, the kind of quiet that usually came before a neighborhood yard sale or a confession. I left before sunrise, packing only what I needed, my dash cam, notebook, and a thermos of coffee strong enough to wake the entire pediatric ward. The drive to Lakeside Suites was 2 hours of steady rhythm, the kind of drive that lets your thoughts line up neatly, like files waiting for inspection. The road narrowed near the water, curving through tall pines that swayed with slow indifference. When I finally reached the resort, it looked exactly as I remembered from our cancelled anniversary plan. Wooden balconies, glassy lake, expensive calm. I parked near the edge of the lot, far enough not to be noticed, but close enough for the dashcam to catch the entrance. I didn't have to wait long. At 10:03 a.m., Matthew's car appeared, clean and smug as ever. He stepped out wearing the same blazer from the wedding, as if it were his lucky charm. Chloe followed, sunglasses oversized, confidence slightly forced. I wrote the time down. Facts, not feelings. Then I drove past them, pretending to check for parking. Matthew didn't see me. Chloe was too busy fixing her hair in the window reflection. I parked near the back, beside a catering van. The resort lobby gleamed with money, polished floors, expensive silence. I checked in for a day pass, using my maiden name. Photography scouting, I told the clerk. It was half true. I was here to capture something worth keeping. The air smelled of cedar and perfume, a combination that reminded me of lies told politely. Through the lobby window, I saw Matthew gesturing animatedly to the hostess, hand hovering near Chloe's back. He always did that, even in casual moments, making every gesture a performance. I sat in the lounge, sipping coffee, pretending to scroll through my phone. The staff moved like trained dancers, smiling without warmth. Across the lobby, a familiar face appeared. Aunt Beverly, of all people, carrying a pamphlet titled Community Donor Lunch. She was early for everything, including other people's humiliation. I waved her over. "What brings you here, Beverly?" She looked startled, then smug. "Matthew mentioned a company luncheon. I thought I'd stop by. Support family." "Perfect." I smiled. "How thoughtful." Minutes later, the perfect timing I'd been waiting for arrived. Pastor Greg's assistant, a polite young man named Peter, walked in holding a folder of pledge documents. He greeted Beverly, then turned toward the front desk. "I'm looking for Mr. Matthew Grant," he said. The receptionist pointed toward the elevator. "Conference level, room C." Beverly's head snapped up. "That's not the donor hall." "Apparently not," I said softly. She frowned, suspicious and curious, the ideal combination. I followed at a distance as Beverly and Peter approached the conference area. The elevator chimed, the doors opened, and there they were, Matthew and Chloe, stepping out hand in hand, laughing too loudly. Time slowed in that pleasant, cinematic way life sometimes allows when you've planned a moment to perfection. Beverly froze. Peter blinked in confusion, and Matthew's laughter cracked like cheap glass. "Matthew?" Beverly said, her tone sharp enough to cut through the resort's air conditioning. "What is this?" He stammered. "It's, team building." Chloe tried to smile. "We were just going over a presentation." "In a suite," Beverly interrupted, "because that's what this is labeled." She pointed to the plaque on the wall, Lakeside Executive Suites. Matthew's face turned a color I hadn't seen before, somewhere between arrogance and panic. I didn't move closer. I didn't need to. The scene played itself, every line unscripted yet inevitable. People turned to look. A couple of guests paused near the elevators. Beverly's voice rose another octave. "You've embarrassed this family, Matthew. And on a Friday." Peter quietly backed away, clutching his folder like a shield. I took a few steps back, pretending to check my phone, pretending not to smile. The lobby cameras would do the rest. As I turned to leave, a familiar voice called, "Isabel." It was Derek, Matthew's coworker and occasional partner in charm crimes. His tie was crooked, his confidence worse. "Wait, did you plan this?" he asked, incredulous. "Plan what?" I asked, feigning innocence. He frowned. "The timing, the donors, Beverly, you being here." I shrugged. "Coincidence? I'm here for photography scouting." He scoffed. "You're unbelievable." That made me laugh. "So I've been told." He took a step closer, voice low. "You're ruining lives over a few photos and a rumor." I tilted my head. "Interesting perspective. Tell me, Derek, how many expense reports have your signatures on them that match Matthew's fake donor dates?" His eyes flicked wide. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Oh, I think I do. I checked one of them. Your handwriting is charmingly distinctive. Round O's, nervous T's. You should really switch to print if you're copying someone else's." He looked like he wanted to say something but couldn't find the right word. I leaned closer, my tone calm but sharp. "If you ever try to lecture me again, I'll print those forms and leave them at your office front desk. I won't even need to sign them." I tapped his cheek lightly, a soft, almost friendly motion that wasn't friendly at all. His jaw tightened, his pride collapsing in slow motion. "Have a nice day, Derek," I said. "You look pale." Then I turned and walked away, my heels clicking against the tile with surgical precision. Outside, the sun had climbed higher, throwing shards of light across the lake. The air felt cleaner. I sat in my car and watched the entrance through the dashcam's small display. Within minutes, Matthew burst through the doors, phone glued to his ear, face tight with fury. Beverly followed, muttering to Peter, who looked like he'd aged a decade in 15 minutes. Chloe trailed behind, sunglasses back on, pretending indifference. I waited until they drove off before turning the key. My reflection in the windshield smiled faintly. Not joy, not victory, just recognition. This was the moment he realized I'd built the stage and handed him the microphone. By the time I reached Maple Crescent, word had already traveled. Claire called within minutes. "Oh my gosh, Bev's been blowing up the group chat. She said Matthew was seen inappropriately occupied at some retreat." "Inappropriately occupied," I repeated. She always had a way with euphemisms. "Is it true?" Claire asked, whispering like her phone might gossip back. "Truth is flexible in this town," I said, "but I'd say it's leaning toward yes." "Well," Claire said, "for what it's worth, everyone's on your side." "People don't pick sides here," I said. "They pick headlines." That night, I poured a glass of wine and stood at the window. The street looked peaceful again, the kind of peace that's really just exhaustion in disguise. Across the way, Beverly's curtains twitched. She'd be calling relatives for weeks, revising the story with each retelling. I almost admired her dedication. My phone buzzed, an email notification. From Matthew's company. "We'd like to confirm you were the sender of the earlier complaint. We take potential retaliation seriously." I replied simply, "Yes, thank you for following up." Then I added one line. "You may also want to review Chloe Benton's mentorship program records. Some overlap seems substantial." I pressed send and closed the laptop. For a long moment, I listened to the night. Somewhere, a sprinkler sputtered unevenly, struggling against a clogged head. The sound made me smile. Systems fail when they repeat without inspection. The phone rang again, a new number. "Matthew." I let it go to voicemail. His voice, when it came through the speaker, was calm but fraying at the edges. "Isabel, whatever you're doing, stop. You're making it worse. I can fix this if you just Call me. I deleted the message without listening to the rest. Out on the porch, the air smelled like rain and cut grass. I looked at the tidy houses lining the street, each one hiding something in perfect symmetry. Maybe that was the secret of suburbs. They weren't peaceful. They were rehearsed. I sat down, notebook in hand, and wrote the final entry for the day. Observation. Matthew's image is collapsing faster than expected. Beverly's gossip engine amplifies impact. HR inquiry initiated. Objective achieved. Next step, Phase 2, Pavilion, public setting, controlled exposure. Then, almost as an afterthought, I wrote a single sentence at the bottom of the page. He wanted applause. I'll give him a finale. The wind rustled the hydrangeas along Beverly's fence, scattering a few petals onto my porch. They looked fragile, but stubborn, just like the people who lived here. Inside, the clock chimed 10. I closed my notebook, placed it neatly beside my coffee mug, and turned off the porch light. Tomorrow would bring fresh smiles, fresh rumors, and fresh consequences. Maple Crescent loved its routines. I was simply teaching it a new one. Saturday came dressed for company. Sunny, polite, pretending nothing ever happens here that can't be fixed with a bake sale or a new coat of paint. The HOA's spring event was set for noon, a community appreciation gathering at the pavilion that, in truth, functioned as Beverly's personal stage. I'd volunteered for check-in duty because it placed me exactly where I needed to be, close to the microphone and the gossip pipeline. I baked brownies before leaving, not for kindness, presentation. People trust baked goods. The smell softened suspicion, like perfume at a funeral. By 10, my kitchen smelled like chocolate and intent. When I arrived at the pavilion, Beverly was already there in her signature pastel suit, barking orders at volunteers like a general arranging troops. "Isabel," she called too loudly. "So glad you decided to help after that stressful week." I smiled sweetly. I needed something wholesome. Her eyes narrowed. "I do hope we can keep things pleasant today." I'd hate for it to be otherwise. Ethan waved from the tech table where his drone's live feed was queued up to play on the pavilion's big screen. "Hey, Isabel, got that neighborhood montage ready," he said proudly. "You're gonna love it. Looks like a travel commercial." "I can't wait," I said, meaning it more than he knew. By noon, the crowd swelled. Neighbors, kids, local vendors, all pretending to adore each other. I checked names at the sign-in table, smiling through small talk. Matthew arrived late, wearing sunglasses and a forced grin, Chloe hovering a few paces behind him. The noise dimmed slightly, conversations shifting to whispers. "Perfect." "Didn't expect you here," he said quietly as he approached. "I live here," I replied. "Why wouldn't I?" He frowned. "Let's not make a scene." "I've found scenes make themselves," I said, handing him a name tag. "Enjoy the event." He walked off stiffly. Beverly watched us from the drink table, pretending not to. Ethan climbed onto the small stage to announce the video. "Folks, before we begin the raffle, here's a treat, our community highlight reel from the last few months." Applause scattered through the pavilion. The screen flickered, then filled with serene aerial shots, rooftops glowing at sunset, kids riding bikes, sprinklers creating rainbows. People cooed and pointed at their houses. Then came the next segment, night footage. Cars parked under street lamps, driveways, the familiar curve of Maple Crescent. And there it was, Matthew's car, time-stamped, parked at Chloe's complex. Once, twice, different nights, clear as confession. A hush fell over the crowd. Beverly's glass of lemonade paused mid-air. Ethan grinned proudly, oblivious. "Aren't those reflections gorgeous?" he said, not realizing what he'd shown. Matthew's face drained of its fake charm. Chloe muttered, "Turn it off." Too late. The neighbors had already leaned in, whispering. A chorus of subtle judgment filled the air, rustling like leaves. Matthew stormed toward Ethan. "Delete that footage right now." Ethan blinked, confused. Why? It's just cars. It's not just cars, Matthew shouted, snatching for the controller. The table wobbled, cables tangled, the screen flickered again. A gust of wind swept through, knocking over a few plastic cups. Kids squealed. The neat rows of picnic tables shifted, brownies sliding across one in slow motion before landing with a soft thud. I stepped onto the stage, calm as ever. "Let's give Ethan a hand for his cinematic eye," I said into the microphone, voice steady. The crowd chuckled nervously, unsure whose side to take. While we're admiring his work, maybe we can also admire how our community keeps track of time so precisely. It's almost comforting, seeing the same car, same place, same hours. Matthew turned toward me, jaw tight. "What are you doing?" "Just appreciating patterns," I said. "You've always loved consistency." Chloe hissed something under her breath, face burning. Beverly stepped forward, whispering, "Enough, Isabel. Let's not embarrass ourselves." "Embarrassment is subjective," I said softly, still into the mic. "I just think transparency deserves applause. Isn't that what community events are for?" The murmur grew louder, half discomfort, half fascination. Suburban audiences crave spectacle but pretend otherwise. I let the silence stretch, then smiled. "Thank you all for coming. I'm sure next month's newsletter will have plenty to discuss." A few nervous laughs scattered. Beverly looked torn between fury and admiration. She motioned for Ethan to shut off the feed. As people began to disperse, I walked off stage, slipping through the crowd. Matthew followed, his hand brushing my arm. "What is wrong with you?" "Same thing that's been wrong with you," I said, pulling free. "Selective honesty." "Do you have any idea what this looks like?" "I do. It looks accurate." He glanced around. Cameras, phones, eyes everywhere. "We'll talk at home." "Talk louder," I said. "I think they missed that part." He stopped, face pale, and for the first time I saw it, cracks in his perfect composure. The performance was unraveling. I left him standing there as Claire approached, wide-eyed. "That was brutal," she whispered. "Necessary," I said. "Everyone's going to know." They already did. They just needed confirmation. By sunset, the neighborhood Facebook group exploded. Posts, comments, theories. The words drone, affair, and ethics trended locally. Someone uploaded a blurry clip from the pavilion feed before Ethan could delete it. The caption read, "Some people never learn subtlety." I poured a glass of wine, sat by the window, and watched the street as the drama simmered in real time. Matthew's car wasn't in the driveway. Chloe's, however, passed by once, slowly, then sped off. Her vanity plate caught the last of the sunlight before disappearing. An hour later, my phone buzzed with an email from Matthew's company. Effective immediately, Matthew Grant is placed on leave pending further review. Employee mentoring program suspended. Beverly texted next. "You've humiliated us." I typed back, "You did that yourself." I slept better than I had in months. Sunday morning, I woke to soft rain tapping the windows. Maple Crescent looked cleansed, but the air buzzed with leftover energy. The neighborhood thrives on aftermath. It's their version of exercise. As I made coffee, my phone buzzed again. This time, a message from Tom Alvarez, the wedding photographer. "Found this in my archives. Thought you'd want it." Attached was a high-resolution photo from that night, Matthew whispering into Chloe's ear while pointing toward me across the room. The flash had caught my expression perfectly, neutral, detached, almost amused. Tom added, "Caption idea, spot the wife." I stared at it, then deleted his message. Not because it hurt, but because I didn't need it. I already had every frame I required. Posting it would be too easy, too expected. Power wasn't in broadcasting, it was in restraint. Outside, the sprinklers sputtered on, even though it was raining. Maple Crescent never skipped its performance, not even for weather. I sat by the window, coffee warm in my hands, and watched as Beverly's car pulled out of her driveway. She drove slower than usual, scanning every porch as if the street had betrayed her. Perhaps it had. I thought about Matthew, wherever he was, probably rehearsing explanations for people who'd stopped listening. There was a time I would have pitied him, maybe even helped him spin a gentler version of events. That time was over. Now all that was left was the finale. Phase 3. The last lawn. The thought steadied me. I reached for my notebook, drew a neat line under the last entry, and wrote, "Next, confrontation, public, night, storm preferred." Outside, thunder murmured far in the distance, as if volunteering. The storm arrived right on cue. Late Sunday night, Maple Crescent lost its perfect symmetry to wind and rain. Flags tangled around their poles, patio umbrellas leaned like drunken soldiers, and the immaculate lawns turned into slick mirrors. It was the first time in months the neighborhood looked alive instead of rehearsed. I stood by the window, watching puddles gather along the curb. The hydrangeas, Beverly cherished, drooped under the weight of water, their pastel pride washed into pale ghosts of themselves. My porch light flickered, steadying again as if deciding whose side it was on. Matthew texted just after 9. "We need to talk, outside, now." I almost laughed. His sense of drama was finally catching up to mine. I slipped on a raincoat and stepped out, the storm wind rushing against me. The air smelled sharp, wet pavement and ozone, the scent of everything about to change. He was already there, standing by his car in the middle of the cul-de-sac, soaked and furious. "What did you do to me?" he shouted over the wind. "Which part?" I said, walking closer. "You'll have to narrow it down." "This, everything. HR suspended me. My reputation's trashed. People are treating me like some kind of—" He broke off, searching for a word that would make him the victim. None came. "You made your choices," I said. "I just stopped covering for them." He ran a hand through his wet hair, pacing. "You wanted revenge. Congratulations. You got it. You've ruined me." "No," I said, my voice calm against the rain. "I just removed the audience that applauded you." Lightning flashed, briefly painting his face in silver light. For the first time, I saw him without charm. Just the tired lines of a man used to admiration as oxygen. Behind him, car headlights turned into the cul-de-sac, Beverly's sedan, creeping through the downpour. A second later, another car followed, Chloe's white convertible, top up but useless against the sheets of rain, and then Ethan's SUV, parking awkwardly near the curb. Word travels faster than weather in this place. "Oh, good," I said. "A full crowd." "Don't start," Matthew snapped. "You've done enough." "Actually," I said, "I've only just started." Beverly rushed from her car, clutching an umbrella that flipped inside out instantly. "Both of you, stop this nonsense. Do you want the neighbors to see?" "They already do," I said, nodding toward the glowing windows lining the street. Curtains shifted, lights turned on. Maple Crescent's finest were tuning in. Chloe stepped closer to Matthew, trying to touch his arm. "Let's go. This is pointless." He shook her off. "No, she wants a show." "Fine." He turned to me. "You think you've won something. You've just made yourself look bitter." "Bitter women don't plan," I said. "They react. I planned." The storm thickened, thunder rolling like a slow drumbeat. Ethan jogged over, holding his drone controller under his jacket. "Should I call someone? This looks tense." "You can record if you'd like," I said. "You seem to enjoy footage." Beverly gasped. "Isabel, enough!" I ignored her and reached into my coat pocket. Not a weapon, not anything dramatic, just a folded piece of paper sealed in plastic. I stepped closer to Matthew, close enough that the rain running off his hair splashed my face. "What's that?" he asked, wary. "An update," I said, holding it out. "You might want to read before you speak again." He took it, glancing down. Even through the storm, I saw the moment he understood. The document was an official notice from the HOA board, signed by Beverly herself. It revoked his access to community amenities pending property review, a technical clause allowing homeowners to suspend spousal privileges during separation proceedings. He looked up, disbelief twisting into something darker. "You can't do this." "I already did," I said. "The board received my filing 2 days ago. You love bylaws, remember? You used to quote them when someone parked too close to our driveway." Beverly's face turned the color of wet chalk. "You forged my signature," I smiled. "No, you authorized it. You just didn't read the fine print. The motion passed because you marked, 'Approve all pending homeowner updates.' Efficiency, right?" Ethan snorted before catching himself. Chloe whispered something sharp to Matthew, but the wind carried her words away. Matthew's jaw clenched. "You think this makes you powerful? You're pathetic." I took a step closer, voice steady. "You called me boring at a wedding, Matthew. You said I didn't count, so I decided to count myself in, on everything you thought was yours." He tried to speak, but lightning cracked again, silencing him. The rain intensified, drumming on car roofs, on Beverly's useless umbrella, on everything that once pretended to be perfect. Ethan's drone light blinked overhead, capturing the scene like a silent witness. I could see its reflection in the puddles, small, steady, indifferent. "You want power?" Matthew shouted. "Take it, because when this dries up, when everyone forgets, you'll still be alone." "Maybe," I said, "but alone feels lighter than living with an audience." Behind me, Priya's voice startled us all. She'd arrived quietly, parking by the corner. She must have followed the neighborhood messages. She stood there, calm even in the storm, holding her phone like a clipboard. "Everything all right here?" "Everything's fine," I said, "just enforcing community standards." "Looks like it," she said. "Carry on." The absurdity of it almost made me laugh. There we were, neighbors, colleagues, lovers, spectators, all soaked, all pretending this wasn't exactly what we deserved. Then came the last piece of my plan. I reached into my other pocket and pulled out Matthew's spare key fob, the one he always left in the kitchen drawer. I tossed it to Derek, who had just pulled up, late to the spectacle. The fob hit his chest. "Go ahead," I said. "Try it." He looked confused but pressed the button. The car stayed silent. "Deactivated yesterday," I said. "Access removed." Matthew stared at me, his expression somewhere between awe and defeat. "You're proud of this?" "I'm thorough," I said. "That's different." The rain softened for a moment, just enough for the sound of sprinklers to return, automated, oblivious, still ticking on schedule even in the storm. It made the street shimmer, every drop catching the pale glow of Ethan's drone above. Beverly looked around, realizing she couldn't spin this into a palatable story. "This is madness," she muttered, retreating toward her car. "Maybe," I said, "but it's honest." Chloe turned and left without another word, shoes splashing through puddles. Derek followed, shaking his head. Ethan packed up his drone, mumbling something about battery limits. One by one, the audience faded, leaving only Matthew and me in the rain. He tried one last time. "We can still fix this." "No," I said. "You can rebuild something else. Just not here." I pulled out my phone, opened the HOA portal, and showed him the final screen. Access restricted, pending mediation. His name in grey, mine highlighted in blue. Lightning flashed once more, bright enough to freeze the moment in my mind. Matthew standing there, drenched, speechless, surrounded by the wreckage of his own performance. I turned away. Behind me, he called my name, but I didn't stop. As I walked back to the house, the neighbors began rolling their orange traffic cones from the curbs, an old Maple Crescent ritual after every storm, restoring order to the street. The sound of plastic scraping pavement was oddly soothing. Priya caught up beside me, umbrella steady above us. "You sure you're all right?" she asked. "I'm perfect," I said. "Everything's tidy." We reached my porch. I looked back once more. Matthew stood alone in the cul-de-sac, water pooling around his shoes, the drone's blinking light reflecting in every puddle like 1,000 tiny eyes. I turned to Priya. "Please tell Ethan to include this in his next highlight reel." She smiled. "He won't have to. Half the neighborhood recorded it." "Good," I said. "He finally got the audience he wanted." I stepped inside and closed the door behind me. The storm raged a little longer, then eased into a soft drizzle. Through the window, I saw the last of the cones being rolled back to their places, the street returning to its usual imitation of calm. And then, nothing but the sound of the rain against the glass. The plan was complete. No forgiveness, no aftermath, no reconstruction, just the storm, the street, and the quiet satisfaction of a story ending exactly where it should. Outside, Maple Crescent glistened, clean, symmetrical, and for the first time, honest.